This podcast is a collaboration between Costard and Touchstone Productions and the Dads from the Crypt podcast.
Hello. The whole fan club is here. Hello, baby booby bubby. Uh-oh. I think my producers are trying to tell me something. Well, what do you know? I asked for final cut, and I got it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. I'm Alan Katz.
And I'm Gil Alan.
Today we're going to pick among our babies, Crypt episodes we love and Crypt episodes we hate.
Or didn't like as much.
Are there any episodes where, as you look at, you just can't even watch them?
Well, thinking through what I liked and what I hated made me think of why did I like them and why did I hate them.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it didn't really have to do with the writing or the stories or taking the comic books and doing what we did to them to make them into episodes. It really had to do more with the experience I had with the various directors making those shows. Because, when we did so many episodes with so many different directors, really well-known and some not so well-known then, you really get a good education in the psychology of personality. And so I think I reacted more towards what my experience was in that capacity than it was in anything else.
It's hard to experience the finished product without feeling everything that went into the finished product. And not everything was happy and pleasant. As we've said repeatedly, doing Tales from the Crypt was capturing lightning in a bottle. It was great fun, but not every episode was a gem.
And it was work. I mean, we were still working 14, 16 hours a day and always chasing our tail to make sure that, we were finished. I mean, we had 5 shows in production and at any given time. 2 were in prep.
Yeah.
1 was shooting and 2 were in post.
Yeah.
So we would be going nuts all the time. I remember a few times people would come into my office and start talking to me about an episode. And I'd go, stop. You have to start by telling me what episode you're talking about. Oh, that episode. Okay, now what's the problem? So it really, my analysis of it in my own head, looking back, was where did I have fun with those directors and where did I have less fun?
You're being so gentle so far. Well, hey, you're holding things in reserve because there are names and stories that are going to come up where, okay, let's see how reserved you are then.
Oh yeah.
We're for purposes of just as it wouldn't be fair otherwise, we are excluding everything we did with Bob Zemeckis, where yellow is off the table. You simply can't say, well, I love doing it. Well, of course you love doing yellow. I mean, you're doing World War I with Bob Zemeckis and Kirk Douglas. What's not to love? And we're going to also cut our second the second script we wrote with Bob, wrote for Bob. You murderer, because again, it's Zemeckis, it stands outside of all comparisons.
So, suffice it to say, some of our best experiences were with Bob, both as writers and producers and even directors. Yeah. And, we really can't compete and compare him to other people we worked with.
So we've taken those episodes off the table. Okay. Now, with that caveat, there's still, we wrote and you directed a number of episodes, and it's hard not to feel a certain amount of additional love for those babies. But so we'll restrict you to one that you directed.
I think the one that I liked the most and felt it was innovative and felt we were taking from Bob Zemeckis' theory of wanting to do something different each time was Death of Some Salesmen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I have 3 words for that, which is Tim Curry, and the second one is Tim Curry, and the third one is Ed Begley Jr.
Oh, well, yeah.
And, working with those guys was just the best. And plus we had a movie star from the 50s.
Yvonne DiCarlo, Lily Munster.
I was the last person to direct her.
As a matter of fact, that is on her tombstone.
It's funny, it's on mine as well.
That's so sweet.
So when you have people like that to work with, even though you're under terrible pressure, and even though we had a lot to do in the course of the episode, a lot of effects, a lot of makeup effects, it takes a special place in your heart. I mean, working especially with Tim was just fun.
Getting Tim, you had to do some extracurricular work to get Tim to take this leap of theatrical faith.
We talked one day and we said, you and I, and we said, well, who would be great? And I think we both agreed Tim Curry would be fantastic. So we called the agent, or Victoria called the agent, called us back and said, I'm really sorry. Tim goes to Carnivale in Brazil every year around the time when you're going to shoot. So he won't do it. And we were like, what do you mean? What? So we called back and we said, okay, can I just have we want to just have a meeting. And we know that I just want to meet him because I had seen him on King's Road in his play much earlier on, Rocky Horror. And I didn't really know him at all, but I really wanted to know him. And so the agent said, okay, but you can't ask him to do the show. I said, well, I won't ask him. I won't ask him to do the show. I understand he's going to Rio. Fine. So we met at Chaya Brasserie in Venice for lunch, and we started chatting, and I didn't bring up the show. And he said to me, so I'm not doing the show. And I said, I know. Your agent was very specific, and I agreed I wouldn't talk about that with you. And he said, oh, good. Okay. What are you having? And then we ordered, and he said, so who's going to do the show? And I said, I don't know yet. I'm still getting over the disappointment of not having who Alan and I both agreed would be the best, which is you. But I don't know who's going to do it. And he said, well, tell me about the show. Tell me. So I started describing the characters and how I saw them and how it would be so much fun. And, Kind Hearts and Coronets was always a favorite of mine. And Alec Guinness played 7 characters. And here we are with Tales from the Crypt, where someone's going to play 3 characters, including Ma and Pa and their deformed daughter, Winona. And the more I spoke, the more I saw his eyes lighting up and him thinking about it. And we had lunch. I insisted we order dessert because I didn't want the meeting to end. And we're sitting there having dessert. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, shit, you really got me. I said, excuse me? What? I'm going to do the show. I said, no, you're not. No, you're not. I can't.
Yeah, you can't.
I can't let you.
Go. Yeah.
Because now your agent will be really pissed at me because she'll say, he said, no, don't worry about my agent. I'll talk to my agent. I'm doing the show. I go, I think you should think about it because, you go to Carnivale all the time.
Now we can't let you do it.
Right.
So finally, have to beg us, man.
So I said, think about it overnight and see how you really feel. Maybe, maybe after you lose me and you go back to your regular world, you'll go,
after the sugar from dessert wears off, you'll
right. So the next day I get a call, not from Tim, but his agent. And she's yelling at me, what did you do to Tim? I said, listen, I did nothing. I told him as soon as we sat down, I said, you're not doing the show. I understand that. I wish I were going to Rio with you. So I was laughing and she goes, well, I don't know what you did, but he just got off the phone with me. He's doing your show. He's just doing your show. He's not going to Rio. And I said, do you think he'll change his mind like in a week? Because I don't want to get down the road and not have an actor. Oh, no. If Tim says he's going to do it, he's doing it. And that's how we got him.
Yeah, he was wonderful to work with. He was such a pleasure. What a
he was
lovely
the best.
guy. Oh,
and we just laughed. We had so much fun doing the show. Even though I was always frightened to death of directing. And I was always nervous that I wasn't going to get the day, wasn't going to get the shots, I wasn't going to get performance. And it was just a joy.
It was as challenging also to to Todd Masters, who did all the special effects makeup,
Right.
and under tremendous time duress. I mean, really, and then because of there was a weather issue, and so we had to flip the schedule. And I think the Ma character had to be ready first, and that was not the original plan. And so
Right.
that kind of Todd flew that in, as it were, at the last second on the day, just as everyone's standing around on the set.
Well, what we had to do was we had to really schedule it based on makeup and makeup time.
Yeah.
So the days were like, oh, if we could separate Ma and Pa and Winona, we did that. And so the schedule was very crazy, and nothing was in continuity. And that was causing more problems than anything else, because we had to realize, okay, what part of the script are we where he's now performing as Winona or Ma or Pa? And there were days where we had all three makeup working, because as we separated everything out for different days, we were left still with a bunch of scenes.
Yeah. Hey, let's think outside the box. We having fun now?
Right. So that was great fun in making it. And I really loved working with those people.
Yeah, it was a challenge all the way around to everybody. It was one of those. It was really lightning. That was a lightning in a bottle episode in our lightning in a bottle show, simply because the demands were so ridiculous.
And the genesis of that show, the genesis of our interest in doing it, three characters, really, we have to credit to Bob Zemeckis, because Zemeckis always said, I don't want to do another episode unless it's different. So Gil Alan, tell me what we're doing that's different. And then you and I would go away and look at each other like, oh God, we're not going to get Zemeckis this year, because he's not going to do it unless it's different. And then we would come up with something that was different. Either you and I would pitch it to him, or we would get together, the three of us, and all of a sudden, by the end of our chocolate chip cookie fest, we would have an idea for a show. So based on Bob and that, we said, well, we're going to do something different too. What is it? And we had no idea until we came upon, three characters, one actor. Tales from the Crypt never had done that.
You lied to me, all of you.
Lied? Now, that ain't a nice thing to say. Besides, 'tweren't no lie at all. No, sir. It's called salesmanship.
The irony of a kind was when we did our last season of Crypt in London, we shot it at Ealing Studios, where they shot Kind Hearts and Coronets, the movie that we wanted to duplicate. So
wasn't that great? That was great. I remember walking on those stages and just standing there and waiting to hear Alec Guinness's voice.
Oh man, it was such a hoot being there. I wish the episodes had been up to the locale. How it is, but it was fantastic being there. All right, so one episode that you loved making, being part of, Death of Some Salesmen. Another.
And what about you?
Looking back, just like you, it really came down sometimes to what I loved wasn't necessarily the finished episode. I liked them. It was working with one particular person. Sometimes it just made the whole experience transcendent. Sure. Dead weight. Working with Toby Hooper was great.
And then, of course, there was working with Whoopi, and that was a wonderful experience.
We were shooting that at the A1 Globe Pasta Factory. That's no longer there, and our offices were out in front of the stage. And my assistant comes in and says, "Whoopi wants to talk to you." I went, "Oh, okay." And it was like the first day that she was working. I said, "Hi, what can we do for you, Whoopi?" And she said, "Can I get a hold of some of the comic books? I love reading them. Can I get a hold of them?" I said, "Yeah. We've got them all in our little boardroom over there.
Sure.
I'll have them sent over to your trailer." She said, "Oh, no, I don't want them in my trailer. I'll just read them here." But okay, well, we'll set you up in the boardroom. Great. She said, "No, I don't even know them in the boardroom. I could right here's fine." She's standing in the hallway. People are passing by. I went, "Well, you don't mean here?" No, here's good. Just get me a chair. She pointed to one that was, that was good. Okay, so I pulled over the chair and put it down, and she sits down and all right, and walked into the boardroom, and I got her a stack of, because they were hardbound
Sure.
in hardbound editions, and I got
Yeah.
her a stack, and I put it in. Okay, can I get you something to drink? Yeah, you can get me something. This, I got her a drink, and she's sitting there reading comic books. Now you have to remember, we got Whoopi just after she'd won her Oscar for Ghost.
That's right.
So Whoopi was as hot, as pistol hot as she'd ever been in her entire career. She was like one of the hottest actors in all of Hollywood. And one of the hottest actors in Hollywood was sitting in our corridor
Right.
reading comic books as people walk back and forth, kind of looking, doing a side eye, like, what the fuck is Whoopi Goldberg? What the fuck is this place? But it was lightning in a bottle. That was typical of the lightning in a bottle atmosphere. Top billing, really terrific episode. Really, I love the episode. What I think about is working with Todd Holland, who was terrific. Wow, what a creative force of nature. Loved working with Todd. Todd, John Lovitz was, I think he was well cast. Not the most personable co-worker, but people in comedy, comedians, as we know, they're miserable people. That's why they're funny. Bruce Boxleitner, was fun to work with. Louise Fletcher, we got to work with. Kimmy Robertson, I got to work with, and that was fun because we just did an episode a little while ago about I took groundlings classes with Phyllis Kaufman, and Kimmy Robertson, who went on to do Twin Peaks and a lot of terrific movies, a terrific actress. She was in my groundlings class,
Right.
and so it was so much fun.
I remember that.
Yeah, that I could I could hire someone from my groundlings class. It's that was like I said, a lightning in a bottle moment. Wow.
Todd Holland is a good friend of mine. Even today, all these years later.
Good. Well, good,
Yeah.
good. He's such a talented guy.
We've actually been talking about maybe doing a movie together.
He's so talented. Yeah.
Yeah, he really is. And also, let me comment a little bit on Dead Weight, because that was, again, one of my favorites as well.
Go for it.
So, I mean, Toby Hooper, I had never worked with before, and he came onto the show. And because of our experience working together on the show, he and I became best friends until he passed. I mean, for years we would get together and have dinner at Musso Frank's and close the place, and just chat about movies. And it was he was just such a special person that I entered my life and stayed in my life through Tales from the Crypt.
The rest of that cast: James
Remar.
My name's Red Buckley.
Manatee.
John Rhys Davies.
And John Rhys Davies became kind of a social friend for a little while. We would have a game night up at your house, and he came on numerous occasions. He would come for dinner and game night with John Rhys Davies.
Yeah.
Another episode that again, it's just I had very little to do with Deadline, which was the first time working with Walter Hill. And Walter basically just took care of everything. I think I was allowed to read the script, and I think, yeah, you can look at it, but shut your mouth. But working with Walter was again so special because he's such an artist,
and he's so knowledgeable.
Oh my gosh!
And Joel had said to me, "Look, with Walter, just he's a partner. Leave him alone. Let him do what he wants. If he goes over budget, you'll figure it out. You'll make it up on another one. Not, I'll give you more money, but you'll figure it out. Make it up on another one." And so we were shooting at a bar downtown, and I was reading the script because he had done some work on the script, and I came upon something that didn't really make sense to me. I mean, I said, there seems to be like a gap. There seems to be like, it seems like I'm missing a page. And so
was it a scene or a piece of scene? It was a piece of information.
A piece of information.
A transition.
You're right.
Yeah. Okay.
So I very reluctantly, thinking and hearing Joel's voice saying, "Leave him alone. Just let him." I went over to him and I said, "So Walter, I want to ask you a question, and I'm also backpedaling as I'm saying this. I don't see this.
This is our first season on the show. We're
Right.
the newbies still.
Right. And we're on the set. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like we're in an office somewhere talking. He's shooting. He's shooting. And so I said, so I don't understand this one piece. And I'm sure maybe I misread something. And I'm sure you're going to tell me what an idiot you are because it's here or it's there. But I didn't see it. So I have to ask you. I apologize. I have to ask you. And he looked at me like I was from Mars. And he said, what? What are you talking about?
Did you not read the memo?
Right.
Don't talk to the man.
Right. And so I picked up the script and I opened it up and I said, see here. I get this. But then I don't, then you jump to this and I don't know what's connecting it. And he said, well, I can't look at it now. And I'm thinking, oh God, this is my last day. And he said, I'll look at it tonight and we can talk tomorrow. And I said, great, just take a look at it. I'm sure it's there. I just didn't see it. And that was the end of it. We worked all day. We finished his day's work. The next morning, I come in and there's I think Ed Tapia said to me, Walter's looking for you. And I'm like,
oh boy,
this is going to be the last day for me. So I go over to his trailer and I go in and he goes, come in. I sit down. You know, you were absolutely right. You were absolutely right. I can't believe I was thinking it, but I didn't write it. Mm. So here, take a look at this and see what you think. And of course it was just, and I read it like in 30 seconds and I said, this tells me everything I didn't know. He said, it's a good catch, really good catch. I want you to sit with me when I'm shooting. And I said, well, Walter, I got a bunch of other shows that we're finishing and prepping, and I'll be there as much as I can. He said, okay, that's good enough, but I really want you to sit with me. And I pretty much designed the rest of my workload to try to sit on the set with him each day, really to be there because he asked me to be, and also to learn from him. And it was just an exceptional experience working with him.
Part of that lightning in a bottle thing was not just working with the best that this town has to offer. It was having our work accepted and then having our work sought out
right
by them. And so when, well, all right, we'll nibble on Yellow a little bit just because, I'm very proud of the fact that when we started working on Yellow, Bob's whole thing was that he wanted to recreate a movie that he loved, Paths of Glory. Right. Kubrick's Paths of Glory, World War I epic starring Kirk Douglas. And he had to have Kirk Douglas, or I don't know that he even would have done it. Because it wouldn't have been this. Right. But it everything counted on getting Kirk Douglas.
Yeah.
And the script that we started with, there had already been a script written, but it wasn't good enough, and it had been written the previous season by some big feature writers who didn't understand how to do this. And Bob couldn't send it to, I think it was William Morris represented Kirk Douglas at that time, and he couldn't in good conscience send it because he knew it'd be rejected. And so he turned to us because, this was part of our deal was manage
fix it.
Scripts. And he said, you got to get me Kirk. And we did a draft. We handed it back. He said, okay, yeah, I think this will work. And we got Kirk.
Yeah.
And when Bob went to direct his next episode, he sought us out and he said, guys, you're going to do my episode for me. You're going to write this for me.
Right.
And that all by itself, to have Bob Zemeckis seek you out and say, you're going to do this for me.
Right. Yeah, because not only was it somebody verifying that we were doing something good and something right, but it was such a joy to work with him because it was so open. It was so easy. There was not a bad idea. Sure, there were a lot of ideas we came up with and he didn't like and we threw them out, but it wasn't like you didn't feel he wasn't imposing himself on us. He was actually opening up the door for us to do whatever you want to do. Tell me whatever you want to tell me, and I'll be the arbiter of what I want to do and what I don't want to do, and what I think you're coming up with that's good and what's coming up that's bad.
or just doesn't work here.
Yeah.
The word bad really didn't come into it.
Never.
It works or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It works it works here because one of the joys of working with Bob was that it was always a challenge because there was a puzzle, a problem, a really tough creative problem that we were all going to have to solve together. It was going to take the collaborative process and our collective ability to problem solve to get past this.
Yeah.
Wow. So everyone is invested in the project. It ain't just a paycheck. It's in the mafia calls it la cosa nostra, this thing of ours.
Right.
Well, this is this thing of ours. You feel great pride in it.
Another episode that I should bring up, which also we had a great learning experience on, was What's Cooking. The first one that I directed, and we wrote the script, and Donner looked at it and he said, "This is kind of funny and fun.
Yeah,
this is really Tales from the Crypt."
Yeah,
and said, "Who do you want to cast?" And I said, "Well, I really would like Christopher Reeve, but he's a big star." He goes, "Well, I made Superman with him. I could call him. Do you really want him? I don't want to call him and then you tell him." I said, "No, I really would. If you could get Christopher Reeve, that'd be fantastic." A few days pass, and Dick comes into the office and says, "Oh, you have a conversation at 3:00 with Christopher Reeve." So I go, "What?
You better be ready for it."
He said he's going to call the office.
And this was a time, Christopher Reeve did not do TV. He was a feature guy, and feature people did not do TV. But we had changed that. We had changed it, and now we could get feature people like Christopher Reeve to do our little TV show.
And he was on the East Coast, and we were on the West Coast, so we had a time difference. And I spoke to him for the first time, and we chatted a little bit about what I thought the show was, and what he thought the show was, and what the character would do and wouldn't do, and all that kind of stuff. And then we started talking about wardrobe and what the sets would look like, and he seemed to be very excited by it, and he committed before we hung up to doing the show. And so Dick was really happy about that because it said something about Dick setting this up, and then Chris saying yes. And then I would call Chris every few days and give him an update. I'd say, "Well, I spoke to wardrobe and we're thinking, how about this? And you wear that. And what do you think of that? I could send you pictures." And he said, yeah, it's good. Send me pictures. Yeah, I like that. And so by the time he came out to do the show, we had a relationship going, and I thought it was fun and fair and equal and good and all that. And boy, was I surprised. So we come to the set the first day, and I'm laying out the first shot, and Chris goes, no. And I'm like, what's no? I don't like that. You don't like the shot? No, I don't like the shot. What are you thinking of? Oh, I'm not thinking of anything. I just don't like that shot. You got to come up with something else. You're the director. I said, oh, okay, fine.
He was being a feature guy coming into the TV world.
Yeah. So we came up with another shot, and we got to work. And I noticed every time that day we would change scenes, and I was laying out how we're going to move the camera and how we're going to move the actors. Chris had a problem. He didn't like it. It grated on me, and I really felt very inadequate. I felt like, why am I failing this guy? I thought I had it all together. And so I think
it's not like it's not something he's giving you a point of view that where you could say, "Oh, okay, I see where you're coming from, Chris. I see why you want this, and I see why you want to." All right, this was simply just digging his heels in for no particular reason.
Yeah. And I remember at one point he didn't understand a piece of the script, and I said, "There's a time cut. This doesn't flow from this to this. There's a time cut. It's obvious there's a time cut. Do you see the time cut?" "No, I don't see the time cut." And we had a whole conversation about how this could be a time cut with a cut. Anyway, I think it was the third day. I was so riled up and so upset with Chris. I just didn't know what to do anymore. And finally, I stopped shooting. And I said to everybody, leave the set, which we never did, I think, ever. I said, I need to talk to Chris alone. And everyone left. And I went over to Chris and I started saying to him, "Look, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. and I'm really upset. I'm not giving you what you need, and I don't know how to fix it. And as I'm saying this, I'm getting more and more excited about it. And and I said, so tell me what we're doing wrong here, so we can change it. And he just looked at me and said, "No, you're not doing anything wrong. Why do you think you're doing something wrong?" I said, "Because every time I set a shot, you don't like it." Oh, I don't think you're doing anything wrong. I said, "But I'm obviously doing something wrong, because every time I set a shot, you don't like it. You have some other opinion, and you don't give me a suggestion of what you would like to see happen or how you would like to move. It's just, no, come up with something else. So Chris, what am I doing wrong?" And then we had to get back to work because it was getting late, and we only took 5 minutes to do this. From that moment on, he would only call me boss. He never called me Gil again. He would go, "Hey, boss, where do you want me to go? Hey, boss, what do you want to?" What? And I didn't really like that either, but it was better than being challenged. And we got through the rest of the episode.
Yes.
Killed Mr. Chumley. Jeez, Fred, you make it sound so ugly.
You killed Mr. Chumley!
Yes, okay, I killed him. Just hold that door open.
Gaston, Fred, where are you? We've got customers.
He'll be right out there, Irma. Fred, get a grip. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and we're all just different flavors of Alpo. They don't keep the door open long, he'll spoil.
We became quite friendly and he spoke after we finished the show.
Yeah.
And even after the accident, when he was paralyzed, and after he came out of and he was able to speak to people, and we called him and said, when you're ready, when you're feeling up to it, we want you to direct the Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
And Dana, I think, called me afterwards and said, "You have no idea the effect that had on Chris. He couldn't believe you guys called and offered him to direct an episode. He is so grateful." And I said, "Well, we're grateful, for working with him, and we're grateful for his talent, and we hope everything will be okay."
I remember the day that happened when the news dropped. It was shocking. It was such a, he simply wanted to be dominated. He wanted to be put in his place, so that
I guess but I was too afraid to do that.
But
I wasn't going to do that.
But once you did, he acknowledged the food chain and who was higher up and who was lower down.
He was also a big guy. I mean, physically, he was big. So I figured, he could take a shot at me.
A strapping lad.
A strapping lad, indeed. But that was a very memorable episode to direct, and it was a very memorable experience with Chris, and it stayed with me all these years.
That episode, what's cooking also, the funny story with Meatloaf.
Well, Meatloaf was somebody that I knew, because he had worked with Jim Steinman, who was a composer who wrote Bat Out of Hell for him, and so I knew him in New York, and I used to hang out with Jim and with Meatloaf. And Meatloaf was a big guy. And so that's why we wanted him, because he was a big guy.
Well, it was also, there was something also just funny, just the idea. And in one of this was a role about, there was a show about cannibalism. Right. And one of the actors that we cast is Meatloaf. I mean, it was hilarious as a concept, even if he sucked. We had to hire him anyway, just for his name. But of course, it was Meatloaf. And I don't know, for me, it was exciting as hell. I had never met the man, but when I was in college, Bat Out of Hell was, I mean, we must have worn out copy after copy after copy, playing that again and again and again. It was just, man, you just get absolutely out of your head and dance all night to that.
And a woman in his band, Carla Jane DeVito, was a woman who was in El Grande de Coca-Cola in the Chicago company.
So really all tightly connected.
So I was really excited to have Meatloaf come in and do the show, and I was really excited to see him. I hadn't seen him in a while.
Now the problem was that we cast him really at the last minute, and the body cast. we had wanted Meatloaf, and we thought we could get Meatloaf, but we couldn't close the deal. And so Todd, who was going to do the body cast, had to commit to just getting the body cast done, and we'd do the fine tuning when Mr. Loaf, came to visit.
And lo and behold, when he showed up,
he had just been on a crash diet. He'd lost 80 pounds.
He lost 80 pounds. And I almost didn't recognize him when he walked into the office. I remember looking at him going, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" That's not what I didn't know. I didn't cast this.
He looked nothing like the body cast.
No.
And, when he wanted to go see it, we showed it to him, and he was really a little upset because he had just been on this diet. He didn't look like anything like that anymore. And we were going to be, that was going to be hanging naked in the shot. We were going to be saying, this is what Meatloaf looks like still.
Right.
But he was very nice, and he let that go. But that wasn't the worst part of it for him. In order to make his wardrobe look like it would fit around that body, the man who just lost 80 pounds had to put them back on with a fat suit.
Right. Which had to be manufactured ASAP because we were about to start shooting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, boy. Morning Mess, our first season, was also a terrific episode.
Well, it's sort of appropriate to talk a little bit about that because we both had the same reaction to that show and to working with the people involved, especially Manny Cotto, who unfortunately and very sorrowfully passed away a week ago.
Yeah,
and Manny became a friend, for all these years. I would talk to him every once in a while, and or about just life, or we'd have coffee, and I remember when he got 24, which was a big TV show, and he was going to be the showrunner for that. And I remember a few other big shows that he got.
Yeah, yeah.
And he became a very substantial showrunner in television. And it all started, he wrote a script with Brian Helgeland, who's also a Tales alum, and called Ticking Man.
Right.
And they sold it for $1 million. It never got made, but they sold it, put them on the map.
Yeah.
And, we got involved with them shortly after that. And they both each directed an episode. But Manny was such a delightful, soft-spoken fellow. He was just such an easygoing guy.
He also wrote the script for his episode, and it was a terrific script. He really he wrote great dialogue, really funny, pithy dialogue, punchy dialogue. I still have some of it in my head. It was so good.
I was always jealous of him because he was so calm. Because I was inside, but my skin, I was scared to death. And I tried to be calm on the outside, but I was scared to death on the inside. Manny he was just easy, and he seemed to be like that. And I was like, how does he do that? Really a sweet guy.
Another memory I have from that episode, this was in our first season.
Steven Weber was the star.
Rita Wilson was the female lead, and she was somewhat newly married still to Tom Hanks. She, at the end, is revealed to be a flesh-eating ghoul, and we shot that the last day that she worked, and she was in the makeup trailer, and Tom Hanks came to visit our set because he wanted to see his wife in ghoul, for her full ghoul regalia, and he waited outside the trailer. And we were at the A1 Globe Pasta Factory. The trailers were out front of our building, and there was an interesting acoustics. You could hear everything. Sound just echoed there. And Rita comes out of the makeup trailer in her finished full ghoul regalia, and Tom Hanks lets out a whoop and a wail and a laugh, and she returns it. It was a sound like I had never heard before. It was so joyous, and it had this childlike awe at, look at you. And God, you could not love those people. They were so authentic. And of course, Rita was terrific in the episode and lovely to work with. And we had the pleasure of working with Tom the next season when he directed. First thing he ever directed was an episode of Tales from the Crypt. To me, the most exciting person we ever worked with was Buck Henry. And I loved the Beauty Rest episode. To me, was about working with Buck Henry because he wrote The Graduate, man. And he wrote the screenplay for Catch 22 and a bunch of great screenplays. And Buck Henry, man. And working with Billy Friedkin was an incredible joy. And I also love working with Kevin Hooks. And I think his work on our script, Two for the Show, was terrific. David Paymer was very good. Shame that he's no longer with us. I also think of Forever Ambergris, Roger Daltrey. It's a good episode, decent episode, but all I think about is Roger Daltrey. Roger Daltrey did our show, was hanging out, backstage with us, drinking tea with us, and you're trying to hit on my wife. But it's Roger Daltrey.
It's okay.
It changes things. But into every life, some rain must fall, and some rain did fall into ours. Not every big great director and great famous person we got to work with was fun to work with.
Not at all.
John Frankenheimer,
comes to mind.
Now, in fairness to John, he was not at the top of his career. We in fact resurrected him. He couldn't get a job really when, well, I won't, that's not true. He was having a very hard time getting work because of personal issues. He drank a bit. And I think the word on the street was he's just too difficult. But we worked for Joel, and it was Frankenheimer, and he was gettable. And we thought, we'll take that risk.
Right.
And so
and it was a risk. It was a risk. And, as part of what I said earlier about the psychology of learning how to work with different people and different personalities, John Frankenheimer, I would go down to the set and say to him, where are we? And I hear we're behind. Why are we behind? How far behind are we? And where? And he would say, oh, no, I'll make it up. I'll do this. I'll do that. And I'd go, okay, fine. I can trust you. And I'd go upstairs and
he would dismiss you, though. He was rather dismissive of you. It wasn't like he was saying, he wasn't bowing and going, yes,
no,
sir,
not at all.
sir.
No. He was like, I know what I'm doing. You don't know what I'm doing.
Get off my fucking set.
Right. And so finally I had to stop him from shooting. And I just have to send a note down. I didn't go down to the set. I sent a note to the AD, stop shooting. Send John up to the office right now, immediately. John came up to the office. Meantime, I'm sweating because we're not shooting, and I didn't like that. I was always worried about time. And I said, close the door, and he sat down. I said, John, this is what the problem is. You're bullshitting me. You're not telling me the truth. You're not going to make your day, and you're not going to get more time. And, I may have to fire you and have somebody else finish it. But we only have so much time and so much money. This is what I expect from you. And he would listen very carefully. He would say yes. And then he would back down to the set. And I didn't know what to expect. But if I brought him up to my office and stopped everything, like I was Louis B. Mayer or somebody, and sit him down and tell him what I expected, he would go down and do it. And that's the only way we got that episode finished.
It's not unlike how it worked with Chris Reeve. You simply had to they had a certain mentality of a pecking order, and they needed to understand where they were and where you were. Yeah,
I suppose. But I really like John personally. His stories about the Kennedys and about especially Bobby Kennedy. He was there.
God, yeah.
He was at the Ambassador Hotel when. In the same room when Bobby was assassinated.
Yeah.
And Bobby had stayed at John's house the night before. So, listening to him speak about all these other things was just fascinating. And,
but that was, again, it was part of the lightning because yes, John was a difficult personality to work with, but it's John Frankenheimer, and he had an amazing body of work, and he was connected to people that, wow. And, so there's that 6 degrees of separation. You're now down to 2. You're in the room now with famous people as famous things happen. That's wow.
Yeah.
All right. As I look at episodes that I I had a similar problem with a lesser director, Rodman Flender. We had problems on, Rodman came in and did a great job for us on was it Food for Thought episode?
Huh?
And he was terrific. And so the next season, he wrote and directed an episode. Unfortunately, he got a comic that was just not a good comic. And it was called 99 and 44 100% pure horror. It's an unpronounceable title. It's a horrible title. And it has to do with an ad slogan from 1,000 years ago. But our deal was we had to use the titles.
Yeah.
Everything else we could toss it all out, but we had to use the titles. And this one was about soap, and it just had such an unlikely ending. The premise itself made for just an unsatisfying story. So in Rodman's defense, he was kind of doomed from the start by a problematic comic. What doomed him even further was we hired an actress, Christy Conway, who I guess she was having an Erica Eleniak moment. She suddenly decided she didn't want to be that kind of actress who agrees to do nudity and then won't do the nudity. And for whatever reason, Rodman creeped her out. I don't know, but she wouldn't come out of her trailer. And I went to her trailer, and eventually she let me in, and I tried to talk her down off the ledge. She was not going to do the nudity. It simply was not going to happen. And when she shot this shower scene, that was essential because it was how her character dies. She was going to have to be in the shower and without clothes and so we agreed that she would do it with pieces. So she was not going to be naked. We would have to shoot it cleverly, but Rodman could not be on the set. He had to be in another room. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, it wasn't all fun.
No, and the Elliot that you referred to earlier is Elliot Silverstein.
Yes.
Who did a number of episodes with us. He was a good friend of Dick Donner's, and he had done he had made Capaloo years ago as a feature with
Academy Award winning picture.
Yeah.
Lee Marvin won the Academy Award for that. Man Called Horse.
Man Called Horse, yeah. And so he did an episode, and I remember we were at a theater in Santa Monica.
The first of many. I mean, in the end, you survived the story you're about to tell.
Yeah, and it turned out that it's a very successful story because, again, you learn from experience of how these people think and how they work. And Elliot became a dear friend, and to this day, I love him. He's like 95 years old. But Elliot came in and he was laying out his shots, and we were out in Santa Monica at this theater, and there's an alleyway behind the theater, and we go outside and we laid out the shots inside, and they seemed pretty efficient. And comes outside and he goes, okay, so
it was a period piece. It was a period piece.
Yeah. He said, Gil, so out here on this alleyway, I need to put dirt for at least 3 blocks, maybe 4 blocks, because I'm going to look down that street. I said, no, you're not. No, we don't have money for dirt for 4 blocks. Maybe we have money for dirt for 1 block. But the way you do that is, you angle it off. I mean, just angle off. You don't have to look straight down the alleyway. You need to angle it. Oh, no, I don't want to angle it. I want to see all the way down. I said, Elliot, it ain't happening. You're not going to get the dirt. I can't do that. It's not only bringing in the dirt, it's cleaning it up. And it's also the exposure of all these other places out there that surround the street. So it's not happening.
Elliot was a very particular kind of filmmaker. He had the whole thing cut in his head. Before he even started, he knew what the whole movie looked like.
Yeah.
And he really was just trying to get just the stuff he needed. And if he wasn't going to get that shot, well, that was going to fuck with something else that he had in mind. So for Elliot, this was, oh, no, you cannot change the movie in my head.
Right.
Producer.
But he did. But he did. And that episode, was fine. And he went on to do, I think, 2 other episodes with us.
Yeah.
He directed Malcolm McDowell for us, one of them.
He did the
Reluctant Vampire.
The Reluctant Vampire, yes. One of the great episodes.
Yeah.
But, well, let's finish on perhaps the most problematic person we ever had to work with. And when he sat in the director's chair, it was especially hard on you because you're the guy who had the relationship with him.
And also, he wasn't directing.
Yeah, when Joel, yes, Joel Silver, the director who never directed.
So Joel calls me into his office one day and he says, I got a great idea. I said, what? He goes, I'm going to direct an episode. I said, you're going to direct an episode? Why are you going to direct an episode? You've never directed before, you know?
Wait, I guess, all right, I'll try to see this from Joel's point of view. We had a lot of famous people directing, first-time direct. We were the famous first-time directors, Arnold, right. Tom Hanks, Michael J. Fox. So why not Joel?
Well, I couldn't say no to him. Ultimately, he said, I don't give a shit what you say. I'm directing. So I said, okay, well, you understand the rules of directing on our show, right? When you're on the set, we don't have cell phones. We don't have phones out. We're not talking to everybody else. We're concentrating on the shots. We're looking at the actors. We're looking at performance. And he goes, okay, I want Jan de Bont to shoot it. So I was like, what do you mean Jan de Bont? We have our DPs. No. I'm going to call Jan. He's going to do me a favor. He's going to shoot it. And so Jan shot it. And, I got into it with Joel because he was never there. I mean, he was off on the phone, pacing up and down the roadway, talking about some other movie with somebody. I go, Joel, they're ready for you. No, Jan's not ready for me. I go, no, he's ready for you. He's been sitting there for 10 minutes. Just get off the phone. Get off the phone now. And we would get into these arguments and he would say to me, I could fire you. I could fire you like that, just right now. And I said, I know you can. And you could do that. But I'm going to fire you because you were director. You're working for me now as a director. I can fire you. And we used to get into these arguments.
Who can fire who?
Yeah, he would say, you can't. And I go, I can. You can't. I can. And so it got to be silly. But he didn't, a lot of times I was running after him saying, get rid of that phone. I'm going to take that fucking phone. I'm going to throw it away.
Really, did Joel direct that? Who would you say directed that episode?
I think Jan and I directed that episode because Jan was really there to.
Well, he set up all the shots, so it's not like
he would set up the shots, and I was looking for the performances.
Right. So
and occasionally Joel would give us some attention, and he would have comments, and he would direct a few shots and a few scenes, but basically he was too busy thinking about all the other things he was doing, which you just can't afford to do when you're directing.
As we said, we were kind of a boot camp for first-time directors. Some famous, so there was something in it for all of us. But our executive producers also used, episodes, these directing slots, to try out people who hadn't directed before. We had a lot of first-time writers. Peter Iliff was the first thing I think he directed.
Steve D'Souza,
Tales from the Crypt. D'Souza, yeah. So we had a lot of writers who were given a shot at directing. And we had gotten quite good, Michael Thal got to direct an episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Right.
And really a total favor. Michael, before the second season, he was the post-production supervisor.
Right.
And he was very connected to Dick Donner. And so, this was in the favor territory. And Michael, he had great ambitions, but as Joel Silver would say, your people skills are shit. And he just did not know how to communicate with his cast. And on the last day of the episode, I don't know where you were, so they came looking for me. I was just the lowly story editor at that point. They came looking for me. There was a complete shutdown on the set. The actors would no longer talk to Michael, and Michael was sitting in his chair in a huff. We got to go. We got to do something. I think Lee was directing that episode. So I walked down onto the set. I said to Michael, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, they won't talk to me. They won't talk. I don't know what the problem is." Okay, just sit here. So I walked over to the cast, and forget me. John Glover was the lead. Mm-hmm. And he was beside himself. And I said, "John, what can I do to try to help you here?" And he looked at me. I'd never been on the set in this episode. He said, "Who the fuck are you?"
Oh, that's good.
I said, all right. Look, I'm one of the producers, and I understand there's a problem. And look, we need to get through this day. So I'm here to help you do whatever you need to do so we can get out of this day. what do you need, John? What's not working here?
Good for you. Yeah.
And so, we got, him with Michael sitting offset the rest of the cast. We had a couple of good young actors. Ki Hui Kwan worked for us, who just won the Academy Award.
Yeah.
He worked for us and got everyone to finally, all right, here's what the scene is going to be. So we blocked the scene. Michael didn't know how to block a scene. And this was the climax. And so it was all about the choreography of actors moving through space and not bumping into each other. But, there was a bit of choreographed madness. He had no idea how to do it. So, so we did it and we got out of the day. But, we worked with unexperienced directors all the time. This was part of what, the good lightning in a bottle, bad lightning in a bottle, but it was still interesting lightning. It was still lightning in a bottle of a kind because fascinating things could happen.
And many of them went on to become, substantial directors. I mean,
Peter
Brian
Island.
Helgeland.
Yeah, Brian and Peter. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Joel never went on to have an illustrious directing career after doing his episode of Tales from the Crypt. It was cool working with Pesci.
Yeah.
It was about twins who fight over a con man, a con artist played by Pesci. And we had those two strange twins who always hung around Silver Pictures.
The Citron twins, Jacqueline and Kristen.
And also, I don't know if you remember Mike Vosberg, when we were with Mike Vosberg, he told a story to us just a few months ago where he was at some restaurant. And this woman is on the other side of the restaurant, and she's going, "Oh my God, I gotta talk to you. I gotta get over there. I gotta talk to you." And she comes over to Vosberg, and she starts saying, "I worked with you when you produced Tales from the Crypt." And Vosberg is now realizing that she thinks that he's Gil Adler. And Vosberg goes, "I'm not Gil Adler. I'm Mike Vosberg." And she's like, Who's Mike Vosberg? And she goes, "I did all the covers. I made the comic book covers. I put your image in, and I think it was her sister, twin sister."
Yes, yeah.
And he told me this funny story. She says, "Wait, well, you're not Gil Adler. Is he still around?" And he said, "Yeah, he's fine." It was kind of a funny story that Mike told us about those girls.
Yeah, Joey Pantoliano also had a small part in the episode. I had the pleasure of working with Joey Pants a bunch of years later when I was doing The Outer Limits up in Vancouver. And I had been out of work for a bunch of years and I had let my hair grow. And I'd gotten this idea in my head that I was not going to cut my hair until I had a gig. And I got hired to do The Outer Limits, and I started writing then. They flew us all up to Vancouver to get started. And I was producing the first episode of the season, one that I had written. And I still hadn't gotten around to cutting my hair. It was down to my ass. I had hair. Can you fucking believe it? I had hair down to my ass. And so we hired Joey Pants. And first day working with Joey, getting worked with him before, I knew a few things about him. But Joey is poking fun at me because look at your hair. Your hair is terrible. God, you look awful. What the fuck is with you and your hair? I said, well, I decided, no, I don't give a fuck about that. Your hair looks awful. Now, I knew for a fact that before he started working as an actor very successfully, he cut hair in New Jersey.
Right.
So I said, just to make him shut the fuck up, I said, I tell you what, Joey, if you are so determined that I have to cut my hair, you can cut my hair. Lunch is coming. Lunch, you can cut my hair. If you're so determined, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Really? Yeah, I'm going to cut your hair. I have Polaroids of me sitting in a chair in makeup and hair and makeup, and Joey Pantoliano giving me a terrific haircut.
Well, I'm telling you, it looks great now.
It worked out. Well, hey,
And just going back to Pesci 1 second. We were shooting Pesci's episode. Joel was directing it, and we took over the Pantages Theater.
It was the last night. Now that was the very last night of not just that episode, but of the whole season. It's really and you and I just after that, I think you and I went to Big Sur together. We went to the Ventana.
Right.
You not together. Me and my wife, you and your wife, but it was one of those times when we used to travel together a lot. And so we were looking forward to
hitting the road,
that we could see the light at the end of this fucking tunnel, especially this night coming to the end of this particular. It's a long, very good season, but a long episode working with Joel. You just want to get this night over with. Carry on.
But we're shooting all night, and we set it up as a casino, the lobby of the Pantages.
Yeah,
and
good.
We're having some lighting issues, and something's changing, and it's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and Joey comes over to me, and he says, so are we going to be much longer? And I went, yeah, probably another half hour. And he goes, let's go for a walk. I went, what? He goes, let's go for a walk. I go, where are you going to go for a walk? It's Hollywood Boulevard. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. You really want to go for a walk? He goes, what? What, you afraid to go for a walk on Hollywood Boulevard? With me? You think someone's going to intimidate me? I said, well, a gun could intimidate you, or a knife. Come on, let's go for a walk. So here's Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci and I are walking down Hollywood Boulevard. Nobody's on the street, no cars on the road, and we're just going for a walk. We walked about 4 or 5 blocks this way. And then I said, we should get back. Maybe the lights are ready. maybe we're ready to shoot. And we came back. Yeah. But it was the most bizarre evening for me, walking down Hollywood Boulevard at 4 o'clock in the morning with Joey.
With Joe Pesci. That was the thing about working on Crypt. Even the episodes that really, at the end of the day, we just hated doing them.
Right.
But it was never entirely white or black. It was still always part of that same fantastic experience. So even the worst day was still.
But so we didn't know that when we were doing it. No. Only now in retrospect, looking back, can you glean some of that? On those days, I would leave and I would go home and I would be just up in a dither, and I would just feeling terrible and couldn't sleep, and
you didn't know how good you had it.
Right.
Oh, and on that bombshell.
Indeed.
Wow, this has been a hoot.
It really was.
What a shock. I thank you all for putting up with this.
I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
And if you didn't, screw you.
Until next time.
Yeah, see you next time, everybody.
The How Not to Make a Movie podcast is executive produced by me, Alan Katz, by Gil Adler, and by Jason Stein. Our artwork was done by the amazing Jody Webster, and Jason Jody, along with Mando, are all the hosts of the fun and informative Dads from the Crypt podcast. Follow them for what my old pal the Crypt Keeper would have called terrific Crypt content. And don't forget to like us, subscribe, and please tell your friends.